enough so all you guys can hear me back there. I know we got the mower going on back there, but yeah, I'm Sergeant Garcia. I'm one of the guards here at the tomb. We heard that you guys are from Oklahoma, right? Yeah. Yeah? I'm also from Oklahoma. Very proud, very proud. So we have several guards. We have several guards here from Oklahoma actually. When I got down here, I was the only one, and then they just started, coming in, and I mean, we're the best ones out there. No question about that. Here's PFC Maxwell. He's also from Oklahoma as well. So he's the one that you seen out there just a minute ago. He's the one that was walking on the mat, and he's the one that laid the wreath for the wreath ceremony. But yeah, we love talking to Honor Flight. We thank you guys for your service. But we love it even more whenever they're from our home state. So, you guys make us proud. Hopefully make you guys just as proud. But I won't take up, too much of your time here. I'm just gonna go over a little short history brief of the unknowns. And then if you guys have questions, we love answering questions. And you have two of us here too, so, ask as many questions as you like, okay? The unknown. We all kind of know what an unknown soldier is. It's a soldier who is unidentified, cannot be identified after the war. And so what they did, they made a monument in dedication to that unknown soldier. And it began with the World War I unknown soldier. And that happened back in November of 1921. And that's whenever this monument was built. And that's the tomb that you actually see out there on the plaza. And so there's one unknown soldier from World War I buried under that tomb. So there had to be a selection process for that unknown soldier. And so they chose a highly decorated soldier from the war to make the final selection of that unknown soldier. And so after that process took place, that soldier was then brought back here to the United States, because the selection process took place in France. And then that soldier had memorial services right in the amphitheater right behind us here. And right after that memorial service, he was buried here in Arlington National Cemetery at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. And so that's kind of like a little brief history on how the unknown soldier became about and was buried here. And following that, there were the World War II, the Korean War unknown soldiers who were buried here shortly after. So when they made this design, they didn't design it for more than one unknown soldier. They didn't expect us to be in another war after World War I. But unfortunately we were. In World War II, in 1941, after the war in 1945, they gave the United States military 5 years to identify as many soldiers as they could from the war, so they could inter another one here as the unknown soldier for World War II. But as some of you may know, in 1950, we were in the Korean War. And so they put that selection process on hold until after the Korean War in 1953. And then they gave an additional 5 years to identify as many soldiers as they could before they had to make a final selection process for the World War II and the Korean War unknown soldiers. Now they had a double interment for those soldiers, and those are the two that are on the outside that you're viewing when you're out here viewing the change of the guard. And so it was a similar selection process. Those soldiers were selected by highly decorated soldiers and officers of the wars, and they had the memorial services also in the amphitheater, and then they were interred here in Arlington National Cemetery. And so you may ask what the center crypt is. Now the center crypt on the plaza is the Vietnam unknown soldier. Now he has a little bit of a unique story, because that soldier is no longer interred here in Arlington National Cemetery, because he was actually identified as First Lieutenant Michael J. Blassie of the Air Force. And how that came about, he had a sister in the Air Force that believed that this unknown soldier here was her brother. You gotta imagine, by 1980, 1990s, we had several ways to identify soldiers. So there were fewer and fewer unknown soldiers. And so she kind of pieced together through investigations. She knew where her brother was stationed at, where he was at during the time where he was killed in combat. And she would question people that were a part of his unit. And she provided enough evidence and provided it to Congress to have him exhumed from the tomb here and DNA tested. Now, she had this evidence early on, but Congress found it really hard to believe that this one woman could possibly know who this unknown soldier is. and our whole United States military couldn't identify him. And so, and so it took about 14 years. So this soldier was interred here in 1984. It wasn't until 1998 that they finally approved it and have him disinterred and DNA tested. And sure enough, it came back positive as her brother, First Lieutenant Michael J. Blassie. And so that soldier, per request of her and her family, was returned back home to St. Louis, Missouri, where he was finally laid to rest in July of 1998. And so that's a little bit about the unknown soldiers, how this monument came about, and how the other unknown soldiers were also interred here. A little bit about us as guards. We guard this monument because those unknown soldiers, they gave absolutely everything. Not just those three, but you know, we have 4,725 buried here in Arlington National Cemetery alone. Those soldiers not only gave their lives, but they also gave their identities. And so they don't owe us or this country anything at all. It's us as guards who owe them absolutely everything. And so we do our absolute best to honor them in every way that we can. The 21 steps we take on the mat, the 21 seconds we face DC, facing down the mat, and the time and effort that we put into our uniform to perfect it as much as we can for those unknown soldiers. Every time we step beyond those chains and onto that plaza, you know, that not only stops there. Our performance outside on the plaza, it's not just a performance. It's an honor. It's our way of honoring the unknowns. We're the voice of all the families that wish they could go onto the plaza and honor those unknown soldiers. So we represent all those families. We represent all those that you guys served with. You know, we're the guards out there that have the honor, you know, to pay our respects to these unknown soldiers. So that's why we do every day, every single minute of the day, even at night when everybody's sleeping. We're out here doing the exact same thing because they deserve that. Their families deserve that. And so it's our job and our responsibility to do that every single time we step beyond those chains and onto that plaza. So as guards, we have a saying down here, and that's soldiers never die only when they're forgotten, and tomb guards never forget. And so we never allow ourselves to forget. And how we do that is to learn as much as we can about these unknown soldiers and what they did for this country, and to tell their story to the public, to you guys, so you guys can go back to the great state of Oklahoma and continue to tell the story of the unknown soldier and to keep them alive. That's our way of keeping them alive. That's the second way we can honor these unknown soldiers. The first way is guarding this monument, and the second way is telling the story and keeping them alive.